My parents had a volatile relationship, and then they divorced when I was 3.
Okay.
My dad got custody in the divorce, so I lived with him. And then shortly after there, another family member of mine lived close to us. Consequently, he ended up molesting me.
What do you remember as a kid? How did you process that?
I think I just ignored it.
What do you think that did to you?
Well, I got to 700 pounds, so apparently not very well.
How have you talked to your parents about the abuse?
I don't. My father told me when I was probably 11 or 12 that nobody wanted to hear about it, that it makes people sad, so don't talk about it. I came out at 13. I was told in no uncertain terms that it was not acceptable.
Wes, I feel like you're still part of this system that fundamentally refuses to acknowledge core parts of your existence. The fact that you were abused, the fact that you're gay, like big, huge parts of your identity are just swept under the rug. How do we make you own your truth?
I don't know.
Could you talk to either your parents about the abuse? Could you have a conversation?
Probably not at this point.
So even in your perpetuating this system where you don't talk about it, it means that some part of you believes that there's something wrong with you.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think there's something wrong with you?
Yes.
Being gay is wrong?
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Oh, years of being told it is.
Yeah. That's a big deal. If this thing that's fundamental to who you are. How long have you known you're gay?
I don't remember a time I didn't know.
Right. Almost everybody I talk to, it's that kind of thing. Like, what do you mean? It's not a choice point.
But for me, and it's so, like, I always talk about this strange dichotomy because it's like, only with my family do I feel like that. Outside of my family, it's one of the first things I say about myself. I take a lot of pride in it. When I lived away from my family, I did a lot of charity work with it. I'm very proud of that. But it for some reason, when it comes to my family...
Well, and I'm going to be optimistic about this. I can't promise that this will be true. I worry that you are preventing them the opportunity to move forward and accept you. That implied in this kind of hush-hush discussion about all of this stuff, you are sort of facilitating their bigotry, right?
Yeah, I would agree to that. I think the biggest thing for me, though, is maybe losing my dad. You know, that's probably what scares me the most.
Okay. Again, Wes, I think you are failing to see the possibility of change in your family. And by not seeing that possibility, you're keeping yourself back in some ways. You are such a bundle of contradictions, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
You are an openly gay man who doesn't ever talk about it with his family.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know that that makes you incredibly unique, but think about the contradiction, and I think it explains why so many parts of your life you have this sort of two ways of thinking about it, right? Wes, you are a strong, confident guy. And I think you could make a very persuasive argument to whoever in your family you're talking to that, you know what, our secrets are keeping us down.
Yes.
And the secrets that you have kept about me have kept me down, and they're part of the reason that I got this big. And it will facilitate your believing that you're worth the life that you deserve. That can certainly take the form of conversations with your dad.
I would be willing to do that. Part of my homework is having to have conversations with my dad that we probably haven't had it ever. So that makes me nervous, but that's something that I'm gonna have to push through. So, you know, the other day I had a therapist appointment with Dr. Paradise.
Uh-huh.
And we talked about some stuff, you know, from my childhood. You know, I had some bad things happen, but who doesn't? And part of my homework, because he wanted me to talk to you about it, see how you felt about it.
Well, I'm sorry that it happened. I never would have imagined that happened.
You know, when you go through some traumatic stuff growing up, it can affect your life.
I'm sure. I'm sure that it never leaves your mind.
No.
I'm sure of that.
And so I think it's good that I'm seeing Dr. Paradise now so that I can start working through those things and getting the help that I need so that I don't fall back into the old traps of self-medicating with food. And, you know, I've lost quite a bit of weight already, and I've done very well, and I'm proud of myself. And I don't want to go back to the way I was.
And I'm proud of you as well.
Thank you. Because let's be honest, eating that much and getting myself to the size I was, that's a form of self-harm, you know.
And you know that never crossed my mind. You being addicted to food.
Mm-hmm.
But I never saw any of the signs of depression.
Oh, I was good at hiding it.
I never did, and I never, you know, I feel bad about that. But I think talking about it is probably the best medicine, really. I mean,
Yes.
because there's no physical medicine you could take to change anything. Just talking about it and getting it out in the air and getting it off of your shoulders, that weight you're carrying around, that depression.
Oh, yeah.
It makes me think back now that if I would have known, I could have done something.
You know, as far as the trauma goes, we can't blame anybody but the person that did that. That person was old enough to know the difference between right and wrong, and they chose to do wrong. And the only person in this world that is responsible for what happened to me is the person that did it. Just know from me, Dad, and I want you to know this sincerely, from me, I don't hold you responsible for any of that. I don't blame you for any of that.
I'm glad, huh?
And I can say to myself who has the real blame. That's not you, and that's definitely not me. That's the that did it. And quite frankly, if that burned in hell for the rest of eternity, I'd be happy. That wasn't so bad. I'm proud of myself for doing this. I feel like it was a good first step for me and my dad and our relationship together. I just want to heal, and I feel like I've started that process today.